The fire hose of news from America can feel like a lot these days.
If you're trying to figure out what to make of it all, we got you.
I'm Katie Simpson.
And I'm Paul Hunter. We're correspondents here in Washington,
working just around the corner from where much of the action is taking place.
2 blocks from the White House.
And that's the name of our new podcast.
For top-notch analysis of U.S. politics from a Canadian perspective, find 2 blocks from the White House every Wednesday wherever you get your podcasts,
including YouTube.
Frequency Podcast Network. Stories that matter, podcasts that resonate.
It was a real-life domino effect. Falling one...
I would especially like to thank Chris D'Entremont.
By one...
So let's give a warm welcome to our newest member of the Liberal Party, Michael Ma.
By one.
First off, welcome, Matt. Welcome to the government team. It's a great honor to be on the same team as you.
Conservative MPs from across the country crossing the floor to join the Liberal caucus, which now holds 169 seats, just 3 shy from a government majority. Alberta MP Matt Jeneroux rounding out the trio of federal Tories to cross over. The move not coming as much of a surprise, though, as floor-crossing rumors circulated at the end of last year, inspired by Chris D'Entremont. Instead, Jeneroux resigned, stating he wanted to focus solely on family. But a few months and a Davos speech later, Jeneroux found a red tie in his closet and got back in the ring. So where does this leave Conservative Leader Pierre Poilievre, even after more than 87% of his party still believe in him? Can he prevent more floor crossers, or is this just the tip of the iceberg? And what would Prime Minister Mark Carney do if he achieved that 172-seat majority? I'm Maria Kestane, and today on The Big Story, I'm talking to Mickey Djuric, an Ottawa-based reporter with POLITICO, to break down the latest in Parliament, where Carney goes from here with another MP in red, how Poilievre can navigate inter-caucus division, and what Canada could see should we get another federal election. Mickey, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I'm a huge fan of the podcast.
Less than a year into Carney's first year as Prime Minister, and we are 3 for 3 at this point. Chris D'Entremont starting us off last year when he crossed the floor, then Michael Ma, and now we have Matt Jeneroux. I mean, what did you make of this move last week? What's going on here, Mickey?
For me, with Matt Jeneroux, it wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when. It was rumored that he was going to floor cross with Chris D'Entremont, and I'm the one who actually broke the story about Chris D'Entremont crossing the floor. I had found him in the House of Commons, just outside the doors of the House of Commons on Budget Day, and I heard that there was some rumors that he was going to cross alongside several other Conservative MPs. One of those rumored names was Matt Jeneroux. So this was really a long time coming. Obviously, he announced his retirement and then ultimately decided that the Carney speech in Davos swayed him to bring him back. But
I mean, this all comes on the heels of last month's Conservative convention in Alberta, where federal leader Pierre Poilievre passed the leadership review with an 87% approval rating. I mean, do you think at all this move, could put him in a position to maybe look at himself in the mirror, Pierre Poilievre we're talking about here, and do some reflecting as to what he's doing as a leader to kind of maybe prompt these people to cross the floor?
Absolutely. There's been some criticism here in Ottawa from the Liberals and also from the Conservative MPs who I have spoken to that say that Pierre Poilievre have brought the party too much to the right. And this is really isolating some Conservative MPs who view themselves more as centrists. So we are seeing Pierre Poilievre in recent weeks make some changes to his image. There's now things that he's posting online as it relates to grocery shopping, as it relates to going to the gym. He's starting to do more interviews with mainstream media, and he's also doing a big speech to business leaders in Toronto about Canada-US relations, a topic that he has not really touched in the last year, and obviously is the reason why he lost the election, because Canadians wanted someone who could tackle Donald Trump and not bring the drama. So we are seeing him trying to take a softer approach in recent weeks, and a lot of that does have to do with Conservative MPs, certain ones feeling frustrated over maybe leaning more to the right than the party has in recent years.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of want to touch on that because, in recent weeks, as you said, Pierre Poilievre has softened a little bit. In the vigil for the victims of the Tumbler Ridge shooting, we saw him and Prime Minister Carney holding hands, as he would in that situation. But the language he's using a little bit more about specifically Carney has softened a little bit. He's seeming to not go against him as he would have with Justin Trudeau, our former prime minister. I mean, do you think there could be any sort of softening? To what degree you think that could maybe prohibit other people from crossing the floor? Do you think Pierre Poilievre can kind of get a handle on this at this point?
I don't think so. I'm being told that there are more MPs considering crossing the floor to the Liberals. That includes NDP MP Laurie Idlout, who said to CBC last month that she is considering crossing over after hearing from her constituents and hearing from people within the Liberal Party. But there are other Conservative names that I have heard too from the Conservative caucus who are also considering the decision to join the Liberals. Obviously, these are tough decisions for MPs to do. What we've seen with Michael Ma, Chris D'Entremont, Matt Genereux is that once they finally make that decision across the floor, they do face a lot of backlash from the Conservative Party, especially the Conservative base. And a lot of them are publicly shamed. Some of their personal details are revealed. So any MP that is going to cross over to the Liberals, they have to really think about how this is going to affect them personally, because there will be some attacks coming their way.
What is it, do you think, Mickey, about the Carney government or Carney himself that just keeps attracting those Conservative MPs who were, presumably so opposed to the Liberals, just a year ago? For some context, Chris D'Entremont, he was elected 8 times. Matt Genereux elected 5 times as a Conservative across provincial and federal elections. What is it about Mark Carney, you think?
Well, even Liberal MPs will tell me that Mark Carney leans more conservative than we saw with Justin Trudeau. And Carney has been very successful at distancing himself from Justin Trudeau's progressive policies. One of the first things he did after being elected was getting rid of the carbon tax, which was a signature policy of Justin Trudeau. And this was because Mark Carney was trying to make a very strong effort to sell himself as enough change to the country and try to appeal to more moderates or progressive conservatives. And I think he's been very successful in that. And I think that several Conservative MPs are still mulling a decision of if his vision for Canada more aligns with their values than a Conservative Party under Pierre Poilievre.
It's interesting to me because, before Mark Carney became prime minister, he was a big advocate for, global initiatives or climate change initiatives. And him coming in, you're reversing the carbon tax and kind of making that stance, as you said, to, distance himself from the Trudeau government. Do you think in some sort of context, Mark Carney is, I don't want to say selling his soul, I don't think that's the right word, but trying to, appeal to all masses in some sort of context and kind of shifting away from where he was ideologically before he became prime minister to kind of gain support from anybody?
Yeah, absolutely. He's really trying to view things out of an economic lens and what's going to grow the economy. And he's really in favor of cutting any red tape or any policies that isn't going to drive innovation in the country. And we've seen that with the budget. We've seen that with his nation building projects bill. We've seen that with other policies that he has brought in. That's why he signed the MOU with Alberta. But there are those in the Liberal caucus who are a little uncomfortable by these moves. We've even seen Liberals form their own mini caucus on the environment. We obviously saw Stephen Guilbeault, who used to be the environment minister under Justin Trudeau, resign his position as cabinet. So even though he is appealing to the broader public, it's not that the Liberal caucus agrees with everything. I got to say, though, the mentality here in Ottawa with the Liberals is almost like whatever it takes to win. I remember even during covering the election campaign, I ran into many Liberal supporters at Mark Carney's rallies. And I was like, what do you think of Mark Carney? And the answer was always like, I don't care who the leader is. I just want to win. And that's kind of the mentality that I am seeing from Liberals here in Ottawa is it's this whatever it takes attitude that is going to get the support of the public so they can keep winning.
Like whatever it takes in terms of, to get the Liberals, or whatever it takes to get anyone but Pierre Poilievre.
Whatever it takes to stay in power as a Liberal government, whatever it takes to appeal to Canadians, whatever it takes to serve the needs of Canadians and respond to what they're expecting out of their federal government.
If Mark Carney were to secure a majority, what would change in Parliament? Mickey, if you could break that down for us, how would Parliament change, in terms of procedures?
It would be significant. They would have basically control. They wouldn't need to rely on any opposition parties to pass any government spending or pass any government bills. So, and this also means that at committee meetings where a lot of bills are formalized in their final form, Liberals will have complete control. So that would also block opposition parties from making amendments to certain bills. So the Liberals would have absolute control over a lot of things.
Do you think Mark Carney needs a majority right now? I mean, he doesn't really seem to necessarily be struggling in terms of governing. Do you think he needs one?
In recent weeks, ever since Pierre Poilievre returned from the Conservative Party convention in Calgary, he has been working really hard not to be viewed as someone who is obstructing government. There's been polls out there that Canadians don't want an election, but they would be willing to go to an election if they see that Parliament doesn't work. So I think Poilievre's team is really taking in that information and finding ways that they can work with the Liberal government. And they are doing that. They help fast track several bills, including the Making Life More Affordable for Canadians Act, which lowers income tax, eliminates GST for first-time homebuyers. They help fast track the Liberal budget bill, and they even help pass government bills too, including the one Canadian Economy Act, which fast tracks nation building projects, and a bill to boost the GST rebate for low-income Canadians. So I think there is a concern from the Conservative Party that if there was an election, they would not do as well as they did the last time around, and Mark Carney would likely get a majority. So I think they're trying to at least buy time for now to prevent that from happening.
I mean, you kind of touched on some major initiatives that Carney has done so far, and we are approaching that 1 year mark of him becoming the party leader and then again becoming prime minister. What do you make of this past almost year of Mark Carney?
I think it's been interesting to see it from a perspective in Ottawa because it is a government that very much likes control. They like to control the messaging. They like to control what information comes out. We've seen this especially related to the Canada-US trade relationship and negotiations that are ongoing. It's very difficult to get any morsel of information, even at where the Canada-US trade minister is on any given day. They keep a lot of information tight. But at the same time, I've noticed there's been a complete shift from the perspective of Canadians in terms of the federal government. And I think that has a lot to do with Donald Trump. People want to see Canadians united. People want us all working together. And Carney is the person that they trust to do that. And I think that he is in a good position right now.
What do you make of Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre's relationship thus far? You know, as someone who's covering federal politics and someone who works in Ottawa, what do you make of I guess, just their interactions or their working relationship? Do you see it improving or what do you make of it?
I think there's genuine respect there. Even during question period in the House of Commons, these two are often joking across the aisle from one another when cameras aren't on them. Obviously, Pierre Poilievre has had several meetings with Mark Carney where they've agreed to collaborate on certain things and find areas of cooperation. And you also don't see Pierre Poilievre insulting Carney in a way that he did with Justin Trudeau. So there definitely is more respect, at least to the point where the Conservatives can be voting alongside some of their legislation in the House.
If Carney were to get a majority, what do you think the Conservative base would think of that? You know, we know, as we've seen at that convention last month, the support for Poilievre is there. It's unwavering from that base. If he were to lose his spot as the official opposition, and it would become a majority government, what steps do you think the Conservative base would take from there?
I think it would create a lot of distrust, honestly, with the federal government. A lot of people still do not agree with Mark Carney or the Liberal government and what they're doing. And this is kind of one of the reasons why I think that even if Mark Carney were to get a majority with floor crossers, I think that we could shortly thereafter see Mark Carney call an election, because I think he wants to legitimize it by having Canadians put him in that position rather than having a majority with 1 or 2 seats, where then 1 or 2 MPs can then control or basically hold things over the head of the Carney government, because that's a lot of power 1 or 2 MPs could yield. So I think that Mark Carney is a risk taker, and I think even if he were to get a majority with a floor crosser, we would then see him take that to a vote with the Canadian people.
Yeah. A lot of rhetoric online circulates about, what these floor crossers were promised if they did cross the floor, some promotions, cabinet positions. Do you think they will be expecting cabinet positions considering they cross the floor?
I think it depends if Carney ends up calling an election. I think we could see some of these people end up in cabinet positions if they're reelected under the Liberal banner, as opposed to them having crossed over. I know they're under the Liberal banner now, but as opposed to, doing what they did. We saw with Matt Genereux, he's actually now an advisor to the Prime Minister. It doesn't come with any extra pay, but this is still a title that he hasn't had. And I think the other things that have been promised, we might not necessarily know of. For example, maybe they got some assurances from Mark Carney that if they were to run again in the next election, that 100% the Prime Minister, because the leader of the Liberal Party, Mark Carney, he would have to still sign off on every single nomination. So maybe there's deals like that also happening, like a commitment to have them right away be the nomination for the party in whatever riding they come from.
What kind of conversations, Mickey, do you think are happening in the Conservative caucus right now, considering last week's floor crossing from Genereux? What do those conversations, do you think, sound like?
There is a lot of frustration. There also isn't a lot of caucus unity right now. There are Conservative MPs that I have spoken to that are upset about Jamil Jovani's recent trip to the United States, where he met with his best friend, Vice President J.D. Vance, and other members of Trump's cabinet. And they're not necessarily happy about that, because for a long time, the leader of the opposition's office, controlled which Conservative MPs could travel, what media they could speak to. And Jamil Jovani kind of goes rogue. He doesn't ask for permission to do these things. So it's caused a little resentment in caucus. And we've seen a disagreement in caucus over, whether MPs should take their mandated raise or not. And then you also have Conservative MPs who I have spoken to who also do not approve of Pierre Poilievre's leadership, and they are waiting for change. So there is not a lot of unity right now in the Conservative caucus, despite efforts from the party to appear that they are stronger than ever.
Right. Kind of touching on that trip to Washington, what do you make so far of how Pierre Poilievre is kind of handling that front, that U.S.-Canada, severed relation front? He hasn't been very, as you said, outwardly vocal about his thoughts, and he's had some struggles distancing himself from Trump rhetoric and Trump likeliness. How do you make of how he's kind of been handling the situation at this point?
Yeah, he's faced a lot of criticism for not even saying Donald Trump's name out loud. even in his speech to his party convention in Calgary, he didn't mention Donald Trump at all. But I think we're going to see him try to pivot once again to try to address these issues, because this is a topic that's not going away for many Canadians. The trade war continues to impact several sectors in our country, including autos, steel. Many jobs are at risk if they haven't been laid off already. So this is something that he can no longer ignore. This is something that he's going to have to face head on.
Mickey, what do you think we could be seeing in the months to come? Do you think we could be potentially seeing any more floor crossing, or do you think everyone is kind of in their seat now and any speculation is kind of at rest at this point?
I definitely think we will see more floor crossers. I don't think we are over yet. And this is coming from Liberal MPs who I have spoken to. So there's definitely people out there still considering it. And I'm anxious to see, too, we have 3 by-elections that are going to fill 3 seats in the House of Commons. So I'm anxious to see how that also tips the balance of power in Parliament in the coming months.
Definitely. Will be interesting months to come. That is for sure. Mickey, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
And that was The Big Story. We'd love to know what you think of this conversation. Find us on Blue Sky at The Big Story, or send us an email at hello@thebigstorypodcast.ca. Be sure to share this episode with a friend or with someone you think may enjoy it. The Big Story publishes every morning, Monday through Friday, and don't miss our weekend listens. I'm Maria Kestane. Thanks for listening.